Hi everyone! Welcome to DARI TV, where I bring the classroom to you. I'm Hannah John, and today I'm going to talk about how you can make the most of your office hours. Stay tuned! When I was starting DARI TV, I was thinking that the concept would be similar to office hours. So office hours is a chance where you as a student will get the chance to speak with me as a professor in the university or graduate school setting, hopefully to get to know one another better, but also to be able to answer some of the questions that you have with regards to the program, as well as your future career. I think office hours are the most important part. One of the most important parts of the graduate school program because it's a unique setting that gives you real one-on-one attention with your professor. So on the one hand, you should think of it not so casually. It is a professional meeting with a professor, a faculty member. But at the same time, I think hopefully it should be a chance for professors to be even more approachable. Now, I have heard horror stories in the past about some students saying that although someone's office hours were advertised for a specific day between say A and B o'clock, that when the student actually went there, they were essentially told to get out of the office. NG, which is terrible. And I think that for you as a student, office hours is the greatest, not only right, but a huge privilege for you to be able to take advantage of. So assuming that the professor you are meeting has a set time for office hours and that you have agreed to meet at a certain time, here are some tips that might help you to make the most of that precious time that you're setting aside. So the first is to have an agenda. Now again, I mentioned before, it's not a casual meeting. You're not just accidentally meeting in the hallway and just saying hello, but you're taking time out of two people's very busy schedule to meet. This means that you should have a very clear purpose as to why you're meeting. This could be as simple as you want to get to know your advisor better, or maybe you want specific advice on your career, or maybe even in terms of things like course selection. So whatever it is, you should have a clear agenda, and hopefully this can also be set prior to when you're making an appointment to meet with your professor. So a good idea might be to share questions or specific questions that you might have when you're setting up an appointment to meet with your professor. This not only helps you better prepare for the meeting for office hours with your professor, but it also gives your professor the chance to put him or herself in the right frame of mind and maybe even to prepare for the conversation that you're about to have. Now the second thing is to set and respect boundaries. Now the boundaries that I'm thinking about here are time related, so that's what I'm thinking. And again, part of this is because both of you are very busy, you as well as your professor. You're making a special effort to take time out of your schedules to meet. Now, when I set appointments with students, in my mind, I normally think in like 20-minute increments. Now, what often happens is I get into the conversation, and I actually do enjoy meeting with my students. And so oftentimes it can spill over into 30 minutes, even an hour. So if you don't stop me, I'm like the Energizer Bunny. But you need to make sure that it's a time schedule that works well with you as well as your professor. So it might be a good idea for you to set the tone and to offer a specific guideline in terms of how long you expect the meeting to be. So you can even preface your meeting by saying, thank you for meeting with me. I know that you're very busy. And so I think that what I can share would be maybe between 15 or 20 minutes. Now, often if that doesn't happen, I take the initiative just to make sure that we're respecting our time. I would say something like, I have another meeting at a certain time, so maybe it'd be great if we could chat within the next 20 minutes or so. Now the third piece of advice would be to take notes. If you're meeting virtually, of course, you have pen and paper as well as your computer. Or if you're meeting in person, I suppose it would be pretty much the same thing. But again, you have an agenda for the meeting and you have limited time in which to speak with your counterpart. And so hopefully you're thinking that something valuable or insightful or helpful might be coming out as a result of the meeting. It's a great idea to keep a record about what you've chatted about so that you can look back at it. And also later on, it will help you with another step that I'll be mentioning shortly. I will give you a little bit of secret information, but what I do is I often write down as well what we chatted about during the meeting, and so this helps me remember that we met and also gives me a good idea about the discussion that we had, and also it's just a nice way of keeping a record of the conversation that we had. Now the fourth point would be to end with an action point. If you have a 15-minute chat or a 20-minute chat with one of your professors, then hopefully by the end of that meeting you will have something to lead into perhaps the next meeting that you will have with this professor. Now you might not have a very clear action point, especially if the purpose of your meeting was to get to know one another better. But there should be a way for you to lead into perhaps the next encounter that you will have, and at the very least to thank the professor for his or her time in meeting with you. Sometimes there might be a very clear action point, so for example, if I'm meeting with a student to talk about progress with the thesis, then the next action point would be by a certain date that you should be providing an update to the direction of your thesis, and that this would be kind of a natural closing for the meeting. And this leads into the last point, which is to follow up. And I kind of separate action point with follow up, because follow up would be after the meeting and after you've already said goodbye and you no longer see each other face to face or screen to screen. A follow-up is also really nice because it helps you to summarize what are some of the things that you've talked about during office hours, to show appreciation once again for the professor taking time out of his or her schedule to meet with you. And it also serves as a nice reminder to the professor about the interaction that you've had. So if we're trying to equate this to what would happen in the classroom, this is kind of like participation points outside of the semester. Again, it's great to have that kind of record that we've met, that we've talked about A, B, and C, and that it was a fruitful meeting, and that you'd be delighted to meet with that person again. So I hope you feel more prepared and even more excited about meeting with your professors for office hours after today's episode. If you have any more specific questions with regards to office hours, please feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Yes. Until next time here on Tati TV, bye!